know I drone on about this, but I just know that it really helps. Please, please, please go and get buy-in from the finance department. And everyone forgets them. Nobody involves them. You get really cross and they go, could you just do this reforecast? And you go, oh, no. No, it's just possible that if you involve them earlier, they might not ask you to reforecast because they can see and understand what your strategy is.
Yeah.
They might ask other things to reforecast before they ask marketing, rather than do what usually happens is, oh, let's cut the marketing budget.
Mm.
And they probably say that because they have no idea what you're spending the money on or why. To be honest, I have no idea what effect this might have.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what as well? They're the short circuit to the MD because at the end of the day, as you said, it's all about the money, isn't it? It's all about the finances that are available and the bottom line of what we're getting return wise. And that is this goes into the politics again a little bit, not being Machiavellian in any way. It's not at all. It's being very honest and open and just saying to them where it is. And every month, damn well, the MD's getting a finance report and that's what they're judging their success against. I mean, it's this, we were talking a bit offline about this with the common metrics, weren't we? The common metrics of success, the common metrics of performance and meeting objectives. And if I'm my marketing silo or I'm in a large marketing team with multiple marketing silos, which are all siloed against these other silos of teams. And everyone has their own metrics their own objectives and their own metrics of success against that. So quite often you can feel that you do an amazing campaign and you try to shout about it and people go, well, okay, so don't really care about that because they have different metrics. They have a different metric value that they are judging their performance against in their own team and therefore the company. And again, it comes back to, if you've made your metrics clear to finance and it's in a very much in the numbers game, they're the ones reporting back to the CEO or the MD, the board, who then understand, okay, well, that makes sense. This is correct. And you said that's the best defense against people coming back and saying, let's cut this, because you've communicated via the finance team, if you're really close to them, and you've communicated via your own management to the board, to the boss. And they understand what you're doing. I mean, they may still cut it, of course, but at least they know what that will result in. They know what to expect from you and your team. So it's so beneficial right down to everybody in your team, isn't it? It
also makes people understand what lead times are, because a lot of the time is I need this now, but actually other teams will have schedules where their lead times is, if you want it now, you should have asked me 6 months ago, because that's what my lead times are. And if you don't understand what those lead times are because you've never spoken to them, you're going to constantly be bashing heads together. And people don't understand, why can't you help me? It's not difficult. I'm not asking you to do something difficult, and it's nothing to do with how difficult it is. It's that I haven't got time to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I was having a chat with someone the other day about the difficulties around lead times, I think, and also just resources, operationally. And I found myself saying, gosh, wouldn't it be helpful if you had somebody in position of authority who could almost like oversee all of these workflows that go into each other from team to team, and then helped you all, not just you, but helped all of you get the most out of your time and resource. And so therefore understanding of lead times, this just in time, or rather sort of, oh shit, let's get this done now kind of mentality of, let's react and get things done as quickly as possible, which puts pressure on other teams. If there's somebody there who can understand, well, you need this level of IT support or this level of support with the website. And it goes back to like, I'll talk to James Holden about, great, we've got a website, brilliant. Is it a website that's going to need maintenance and significant changes in the background, the back end of it, significant integrations, for example? I mean, I've been in a situation before where instead of a website or a CRM, and they go, there's going to be no integrations now, so you're done. You're like, well, hang on a second, but I'm using a social media platform which needs to be integrated with a website, which needs to be integrated with our CRM, and that's the whole point why we've got this, and that's what we need to do. So it goes, no, we've used all the budget, and we've used all the time available for our people to help with that. And you go, but the whole point.
But now what?
Now I can't achieve all these marvelous things I've said we can deliver on. Are going to have to be down for another year, so wait till next year till that. But if you've already communicated that and made it understood, as I say, if somebody who's a good operational person or the right sort of senior person who can actually oversee and understand what it is you and sales and operations and IT and everyone is trying, finance is trying to achieve, then they can help line you up, because you just it's like one of those children's games, isn't it, where you like a marble goes through and it has to be connected to make its path all the way through my marble run, and there's just, you find the problems that the gripes people have come about from these non-alignment issues, don't they? And it's everywhere.
Absolutely.
Everywhere.
I mean, if you're a marketing manager, part of being a marketing manager is also being half operations director, particularly at the managerial level. It is, to be honest, should be your job to have talked to the IT manager and the warehouse manager and the business development manager and be talking to them all the time. And then going back to your team and going, I was talking to the IT manager yesterday, they've got a big problem because they're being forced to bring in a whole new system to deal with GDPR. So it's stalled a lot of their teams. So I want all of us who've got some IT heavy workflows to rethink those workflows. And we are going to restructure a bit. And yes, some things are going to have to push forward, and we'll tell the sales team. So as a marketing person, you have to be an operations director.
Exactly. Yeah.
And if you're in a big organization and you've got an operations director, they do exist, these people, you really ought to be sitting on their lap all the time. Because that way your needs come first.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all a horrible bit of politics, but you do need to go and make sure that the operations director knows you exist.
Yeah, exactly. And then again, in your team, it's sort of you would hope that I think ways in which you can see in terms of developing talent in your own marketing team, you get the people who kind of get those wider connections, because they'll have far more connections than you have at other levels in an organization, right? And they can then feed back into you. And if you're feeding into the team to understand, well, what's, Joyce in accounts has this thing which he said, do you know what would really help every month is if we fed in all of our, I don't know, Facebook spend on this sheet instead of this sheet. And it could be one small, simple thing that helps, but actually you go, okay, great. Yeah. Do you want to just take that on and help us do that then and work with Joyce on that? And then I can report into Madeline, who's the head of finance, and say, look, these two work really well on this. That's a really good thing, isn't it? And then it's good for them. It reflects well on them. It reflects well on your team, and just reinforces the relationship again, isn't it? That sort of building of relationships at every level. And again, that, I mean, as I say, that building a team and getting buy-in from other teams, a lot of it comes out of this culture, doesn't it? This idea of, we are all in this. Again, I've said it. David Cameron or something. This sort of, we're all in this together, but this sort of, we are in this together in terms of like, let's be on board with the same ideas, the same concept. And it's, I mean, God, this is a totally different conversation, but around organizational culture, but the whole thing of when an organization is constantly having to say, we're a caring organization, we care. Like, you clearly don't care, because you have to keep on reinforcing the fact that you care. But if you are genuinely good about, your organizational culture around, not being terribly toxic and fighting between teams, you are actually genuinely, you have the managers in place and you have the understanding that, as you say, operationally they've got to practically work in these ways with other teams, but also it has to come back from trust, doesn't it? And going a bit like Simon Sinek, sort of the idea of it's better to have someone you trust rather than being an amazing performer, perhaps somebody who's going to be honest and
that's right,
work well with you across different teams.
Being agile, I mean, you used the word before, agile, and there's a whole philosophy around business agility and being agile, and you can read large textbooks if you want to, and they are quite interesting. But every team can be agile if they communicate and trust. Those two words, trust is such an important word, Sam, because if you trust that someone is going to help you, you will, in a very agile manner, talk to them. There's no barriers. You also need to know that if you are a team member, that you can have, that your manager trusts that you're doing the right thing, and that you can go back to your manager and say, do you know what, I've been wrestling with this, but actually I'm finding it really difficult to get anything out of the warehouse. They're just really stalling, they're being really awkward. And then a bad manager would go, oh, well, just keep asking them, or, oh, never mind. A good manager's going, right, okay, I can see that's a problem for you. I will go and talk to the warehouse manager. Not offload it back on the executive, but go, right, okay, you've come to me. I'm now going to absorb that problem. That's part of my job as a manager, is to be a buffer for you. And I'm going to go and see if I can sort this out. Tell me all about it. I'll go and talk to them.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. And they're hopefully, clearing the way and heading things off of the pass early, almost effectively, aren't they? And because you say with trust, it's trusting when when someone will do something, but also then trusting where you don't have to intervene effectively. If a relationship starts to work well, you think, well, okay, I know this is all right because we have mutual trust between myself and the head of sales. Say, they're not going to try and shaft us and say, oh, look what they've done. They haven't delivered on this or not. You say, well, we know we're already on the same page. I mean, again, obviously, as we know, the life is messy, teams are messy, people are messy. There are these human relationships and dynamics, aren't there, which happen where you have someone who's just difficult, or a number of people who are difficult. But then it's that as a manager, you're probably looking at thinking, oh God, how do I get these guys on board? But again, I'd say it's utilizing your marketing talents again, isn't it? It's like just trying to understand how you can help them, but they're helping you. It's that sort of way, isn't it? For someone who's really difficult, you think, oh God, they just, instead of building up a sort of an empire to oppose their empire, more of a how do you, the Sharks and the Jets or whatever, fight in the warehouse. It more about how you can, really try and understand. And then I suppose that's how you're doing the right approach, and then you're communicating well to your superiors. They can understand that you're working well, and it should become quite evident if you carry on in a sort of a fighting the good fight in an honest way, a constructive way. Then it should start to become pretty apparent that this other person is the sort of Machiavelli's prince who's trying to manipulate things. In an ideal world, I suppose. I mean, sometimes we know these things just don't work out, but if you're following these practices and being transparent and open, etc., then you should start to see that things go better. I don't think there's anyone out there really necessarily in organizations who really sort of people who are self-interested and out for themselves to make their team do as well as possible. But at the end of the day, they kind of know, particularly increasing now, things are so interconnected. You have to work well with other teams to be successful.
You have to. And to be honest, it's very likely, it's very unusual to find a company where they create physical silos, actual finances in this building or sales works here. And I've worked in companies where the marketing team was actually in a different building. We were somewhere else. You had to go out in the rain with an umbrella to come and talk to us. That wasn't great. So, of course, nobody came out in the rain to talk to us at all. They might possibly send us an email, but even that was a bit unlikely. But it means that you have to pick up that baton and go, right, I'm going to go and hang out in their kitchen. I'm going to go and, again, just go and say hello. Apropos of nothing. Don't feel you have to have a meeting. And so you've got to, in some mysterious way, manage to book a meeting room, because that can be impossible. Go say hello. Just walk in and go, oh, hi, how you doing? Yeah. Doesn't have to be huge, but make yourself visible.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think it's being visible, and it's being that sort of that transparency around sort of saying, so like you said, quite often when I was talking earlier on about the whole thing about somebody leading the charge with internal communications, and quite often might be just shouting about successes all the time. But wouldn't it be fantastic if you actually, and this is quite a leap, but going out there with your failures, promoting your failures. And I know that sounds, I think maybe promoting your failures amongst other managers and people at first are perhaps in that way to say, look, this happened, and you know what, it happened because of this. This was the actual issue. I mean, it's going to that level of like being really adult. When they talk about that thing where you have a conversation, difficult conversations, and you're either the child, the adult, or the parent. Yeah, it's about being the adult and just being very sort of on, like, one of my old bosses again used to say, look, we are where we are. We are where we are. What went wrong? What can we do to improve next time? And actually, if you do that, I think that's a really healthy culture. And I know that's a hell of a leap for a lot of people. The idea of going off and saying, yeah, do you know what? The website crashed the other day for 72 hours. And, we lost loads of customers. Ooh, you'll feel very difficult about that. But there's an adult, mature reason why this happened.
Yeah.
And you can learn from it. And I think that is the sort of the ultimate level to aim for, but perhaps in a small way, I mean, again, go and hang out in the kitchen, talk to sales, and then talk to somebody there who says, perhaps they say, oh, well, my boss, head of sales is really pissed off because, they're not getting through enough leads from you. And you can say, okay, well, do you know why? Do you know why I'm not getting them? It's because of this and this and this. And, this is really difficult for us because if we understood this, it's just oiling the wheels again, isn't it? But in an honest way.
Exactly. And often the solutions are tiny. You might be saying, I was talking to a colleague the other day who said, I was talking to someone and they said, the real problem we've got with our CRM system is that the field that we have to put names in isn't long enough. It's just not long enough. We can't put the whole name in there. It's a nightmare. And he went, okay, I can fix that in 2 minutes. I can fix that because all you have to do, and he actually fixed it for them. But he might, if you're in the kitchen, he might run, you can fix that in 2 minutes. You know that button, that little 3 dots to the right, if you click on that, it says lengthen field. And you can just do that and that'll do it throughout. And then all the names will fit in. And that's exactly the kind of thing that can just happen if you don't silo yourself. If you don't go, oh, I won't tell anybody else what's going on because we're all a bit special.
Yeah. I think quite a lot of it perhaps stems from, at every level, potentially, but this sort of professional gloss, which we like to sort of really paint upon ourselves and our LinkedIn profile, which sort of says everything's wonderful, everything's perfect. Rick's grin, like this possessed mannequin, don't we? And I think particularly in meetings where it's a bigger meeting, multi departments, and it's like, we're doing really well, we're doing better than you actually. So it's almost like you had that used to watch this show, I don't know if people did back in the day, Coupling, which had this these couples getting together, this comedy series on BBC Two, I think it was, and they had one episode which was Captain Subtext, where this guy came on, Captain Subtext, visor comes down and then actually says what people are actually saying. They did the whole scene just talking away in this conversations, and then actually the Captain Subtext comes in and shows what they actually mean by it, particularly in Britain. British organizational culture. I work with this cross-culturalist, and it's fascinating knowing how different cultures actually say what they mean, or they don't say what they mean most of the time. But particularly I think in a British managerial cross-team meeting, it'd be hilarious to do that. In fact, if you're feeling creative, do it for a Christmas party perhaps nowadays. Do a virtual Captain Subtext if you're open about things with your colleagues. And there's so much going on, isn't there? But which people are not saying. But if you're the person who actually crosses crosses the Rubicon, I don't know, and then says, right, from now on, I'm gonna be just very straightforward about this stuff in a unoffensive way, but just very straightforward way.
There is one tiny little phrase that you also always use to question. It's absolutely fake, and this is very British. When we say, "Oh yeah, that's fine," that doesn't mean that. That means, oh, for God's sake, now I'm going to have to sort that out. That's not going to work over there. That person's going to hate it. Oh no, okay, that's fine. If someone says that, just say, oh, I'm really pleased with that. Would you like to unpack it just to make sure it's fine all the way through? Yeah. You will find that it's not fine at all.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. And again, I'm just thinking back to what we've been saying, really. It's just going through communication, it's going through relationship building and honesty, trust, and, I don't know, somebody listening to this who's perhaps in the thick of I say battles, but situations of this nature, who's perhaps struggling a bit.
Challenges.
You're thinking, oh well. They probably see the ultimate sort of the ideal situation, but then actually the things you can chip away at, aren't they? If you're in a situation like that, or if you're going into a new role, it's almost like spending your first few weeks assessing the ground, seeing the relationships, which we all do, don't we? But then thinking, okay, what am I going to put in place that's sustainable, that I think I can do to, again, communicate? And it goes back, because this is from a marketer's point of view. Again, I'm saying it goes back to just have a marketing plan for your organization, and that's not done in a cynical way. It's done in just a very much a kind of, well, these are my skills, these are my team's skills. How do we market ourselves, and how do we market the company? I'm asking the company to the world, to our audiences. Do they really? Because again, so I'm going off on one. This comes back to most of the really bloody stupid decisions that get made, or things that don't happen with politics and political battles, come about because people are not looking at what's important for the customer, looking at what's important for them internally. Completely. And this whole thing we said about with the politics one was about, you need to bring the viewpoints in and just give that perspective, don't you?
That's a really good point.
So that's what we need. That's what we need to do, and that's going to help everyone at the end of the day.
You need to have that big. Does the customer care?
Yeah.
It should be a question you ask all the time when you're thinking, oh, we can't have a microsite. Does the customer care? What difference would it make if you said, actually, well, we're going to have to send to a Facebook site, which we can set up quickly over here because IT is too busy? Does the customer care? Almost certainly not.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, I can't think of a customer who went, well, I'm going to buy it, but to be honest, it would have been so much better if they'd actually put in a microsite in here and I could have engaged with it differently.
Yeah.
It never happens, does it?
Exactly, and that's the thing. You can get held up. You can be hoisted on your own petard with these things. You can end up sort of going, oh, it's fantastic new technology. Let's go back to our chatbot, shall we? So yeah, we're going to put a chatbot in. It's amazing because I want to try this out because it's really interesting. Sort of like it's like machine learning kind of AI-ish kind of stuff.
Wow.
It sounds good, doesn't it? On a report, we're gonna do chatbots this year. And so you pop it in. Again, not to disparage chatbots, they can be very useful at certain times in certain ways, but you might just say, hey, let's do it. And then you try and get somebody, to help, try and get budget for it, try and get resource for it and people to install it, make it work and for you. And then it ends up not working because you've just been too obsessed with doing that. And it's not important to the customer. So you're checking, is it important or not? And it comes back to something which I think with a little poll we did where certain people were saying about they struggle to have people in more junior members of their team to understand the importance of marketing and the view of marketing and marketing strategy and how to do things. But it can end up being a frustration. You think, why don't they understand this? As we said at the top of all this, they might not have been trained, should we say, as a marketer. So if you're saying that and you're the manager of them, then it's kind of on you to try and work out what training they need to understand. But it's also could be quite straightforward in terms of understanding, well, what are the skills I need them to, the awareness they need to have of what they're doing that contributes to the greater plan. And therefore, actually saying, well, let's try and get that understanding in a caring and sensitive and nurturing way rather than you don't get it sort of way.
Yeah, exactly. You can't understand. I mean, I think you've rounded it off because I think we've come back to the same position that we started at, actually, isn't it? That it's all about communication and being brave enough to tell the truth. It's that trust, communication and truth that helps you work across silos, if you can be bothered, but be bothered, and work within your team. It's not working across, getting buy-in is not just with other teams. It's getting buy-in within your team is as important as getting buy-in without other teams, and he uses the same skills.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it, isn't it? And I think one of the biggest problems one of the biggest issues with all this really is around having the time and the step back to kind of appreciate that, because we're all so carried away with the day-to-day of just getting things done, hitting our targets, and our own, personal struggles. I mean, if you've got you're doing homeschooling at the moment with the kids and you're thinking, oh, I've got to get that done, and then I need to step back and think about how I can communicate better with my team. It's probably not going to be number one on your priority list, but it will probably be the biggest problem on your actual list of gripes of the day-to-day. So it's almost like I'd look at inverting where your priorities are, because if you're finding things are getting worse and harder in this area, then it's probably that you just need to flip the list. And of course, I know that means an understanding really boss, but your boss should, if you're being, any good boss should understand if you're saying, look, you know what, I'm not going to be pushing on this. I'm going to try and get these systemic issues and personnel, HR problems sorted, operational problems sorted. Because you know what, in the next 6 months, we're going to need it's going to take a long time to get this right, and we're going to have to review it properly. And I need to review it for my own sanity and my team and other teams. But at the end of the day, this will work well for the company. So you almost need like a bit of a, you need to evangelize, don't you, into there to say this is why this is important. Use this video, send this video to your boss and say, this is the problem I have. This is why I don't get it.
Exactly. I mean, Sam and I have both been bosses, so we both know that I've never ever, when a member of staff came to me and went, I can't do this, this is too hard, I've never sat there and gone, do you know what, I don't care. I'm really cross it's going to affect our bottom line, but to be honest, couldn't give a toss. Just go and work it out. Never, ever. I know there are managers that do that, but it's extremely unlikely that your manager will do that.
Exactly. Yeah, and they need to sort of go to you need a sort of a process to apply, don't you, to say, well, okay, how can I make this better? What am I going to do to make this better? And I think particularly when I've talked before about sort of, neo reports and personality types, when the pressure's on, we all kind of revert to a certain type, and the types of leaders, the types of managers who might go into the detail or remove themselves or denial or whatever it might be. But I did this piece of work with somebody who's a leadership consultant and coach, and he's got a fantastic, it's like 40 different types of leaders. And I did these little sort of like cards to show the narcissistic leader, the technocrat, and I'll share it at some stage on the podcast. I'll put it on Facebook actually, because it's really interesting stuff. And we should get him on to talk to us as well. He's got a fascinating experience across management and leadership on all sorts of sectors. So he's really good. It was this sort of understanding around sort of, okay, so there are certain personality types, ways you will revert, as we know, sort of you'll favor certain ways of dealing with situations. But as you say, if you start with, you're going to care and you want to have a way to help. So there are techniques, there are solutions, there are things like the things we've been talking about, which can help you. And it's not going to be transformative overnight if you just suddenly say, okay, well, this person's struggling. So do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go and talk to the head of finance, and then suddenly tomorrow, everything will be fine. It's more of a, I need to put in systemic, long-term processes. And that's why it's so much better to do that right from the start, isn't it? When you are building a team. And it's not easy. I mean, this is why, managers and leaders, I suppose, get paid the big bucks, isn't it?
And it takes a long time.
Yeah, I mean, like anything, like with marketing, it takes a long time, doesn't it? And it's never going to be net. Well, there'll sometimes be a small fix that actually ends up being a big fix, which you didn't know about. But it's more the small everyday gains, isn't it? It's the chipping away and the chipping away, or the building up brick by brick of relationships, which ultimately will yield that result, won't they? And I think it's important then that you realize that yourself, and you realize it with your team, saying, isn't that marvelous? What a great result. Finance really supported us in that meeting. Made sure we had that budget. Why did that happen? Oh, because we have a coffee with them every Tuesday morning.
Exactly.
Things like that.
Go mad and invite your finance leads to your Christmas party.
Yes. Yeah.
I know that Christmas is a particularly silo-y time. That's absolutely when teams go, no, you can't come because we're having our Christmas party over here. That doesn't help. But, it might even surprise them. They might even invite you to theirs. Hurrah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That is it. And it's just, it is cutting through those ones. And wouldn't it be lovely to be known as the team which was the most welcoming and open, and, naturally, the whole, business karma, things will, or organizational karma, actually, I suppose, things will come back upon you, won't they? And they will be beneficial to you because people know what you're about. They know who you are. They know your priorities. You know theirs. I mean, that's the thing, going back to internal marketing. You know their pain points.
Exactly.
You've learnt them through the cups of coffee. You've learnt them through the Christmas parties. You know what, if you suddenly come along with a great new project, which you're very excited about, it's going to be a pain in the ass for them, and they're never going to be able to do it because they don't have the time, and they're really worried about this brand new, accounting system that's coming online. That's the big priority for IT and accounts and operations. You've learned, you've done your that's another thing, internal market research. You've done your internal market research. I'm just basically saying, if you're in this situation right now and you're doing this, or you're start with your marketing plan for your customers, then do a marketing plan for your internal people. Start with your market research, understand your internal audiences. That is the one thing, along with communicating and building trust. But start with that. Start with a marketing plan today of your organization. That's what I'm saying.
That's very, very wise. Very wise. I mean, it doesn't need to be huge. It could be a lovely one-page marketing plan. Spot the podcast I did about telling you how to do that. But it doesn't have to be long. Just do it, and actually make sure and please find out people's actual names. Do not put in your marketing plan finance exec. She's called Gillian. Write Gillian.
Yeah, exactly. Because then again, you're going to that human place, as it were. You're seeing a fellow human being, and actually, there she is. She's in that office pod over there, or perhaps she's on that Skype call, that Zoom call in the corner there last Thursday. That was Gillian.
Yeah.
Julian's got cats. Well, that's interesting. Going back to our networking example, Julian's got cats. I've got a cat. Hey, we could talk about what cat food we have, or is your cat?
Yeah, and all of a sudden there's that kind of barrier. There's a kind of barrier broken down instantly.
Exactly. Yeah. So that in a nutshell, I think. No, I'm declaring this, but yeah, I think that's, isn't it? I think that sort of, if you're doing anything, get the understanding of your marketing plan and for your internal organisation. I think that's marvellous.
There you go. Poof, that sums it up perfectly.
But hopefully that's
easy peasy. But yes, it's not difficult. It's going to take you some time, and there will be some pain points. But ultimately, you're going to go, I like going to work because I can talk to everybody.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. It makes it far more fulfilling, doesn't it? From a personal standpoint, of being able to actually really enjoy your work, enjoy working with your colleagues, and that starts from even sort of a small business, a small team, building up to the largest team, effectively.
Absolutely.
And you establish those practices right at the beginning of your career, and if you haven't, do it now and try it. See what happens over 6 months, and maybe things will be much happier and better for you. So I'm quite excited by that idea, actually.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't have to be a manager to do this. Everyone can do this. Could be your first job, the first time you've ever done this. The moment you start communicating, it's very good for your career, because people then know who you are and what you're thinking. But it just makes it a whole happier place. You're not kind of the little thing at the bottom who just does everything they're told. Don't do that. Ask, say, why am I doing that?
Exactly, and if you're balancing it well between understanding and trying to help others, whilst also having that assertive, friendly but assertive way of saying no because of So if you're well organised, you're trustworthy, you're open. Again, this is painting a picture of a wonderful individual, but really aspire to these things. We all be pretty rubbish all the time, but let's aspire to these things. And do that. And you can say to everybody, look, wouldn't it be wonderful in the meeting if you said, so do you know what, I've done a little marketing plan for our organisation, and I'm not doing this in a sort of behind the way, manipulative, behind the scenes way. I'm trying to understand you and what you need. And do you know what? This plan I'm doing internally is exactly the same as the plan I'm doing externally. So that's what we're doing. Just to explain to you. And this is the persona I have for sales team. Here you go. Do you agree with that? Oh no, that's hilarious. Oh yeah, that's true. Isn't that a great icebreaker?
Yep, absolutely.
Interesting way.
Brilliant idea, and it shouldn't be too taxing.
No, it shouldn't be. I'm really interested to see if please, if anyone's watching or listening to this, could you please have a go at this? Because I'm not in an organisation now, have been for many years, but not at the moment. And so I'd love to hear somebody, if you think this makes any sense at all as an idea. But please, could somebody, if you're struggling with these sorts of things, these issues, have a go and try this and just see, or even just write it out, just scope out. I mean, I know in an idle moment, when you can do a one-pager, even just in a very top level way of your organisation, think, how are you going to do it? I'd love to see that. I think it'd be really interesting. Yeah. But and I'll post it out there and see what people think. We'll post it on.
That's a good idea. We'll do a link to the one-page plan so you know what it looks like, and just fill it in, as you say, very top level. You don't need to put you're never ever going to hear me saying this at any other moment. You don't need to do a budget.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the only time I'm ever going to say that.
Yes, exactly. And exactly. It's more about all the other understandings, isn't it? Who your audience are.
Exactly.
I think that's good fun. That can work well.
Absolutely. Give that a go. You might people will giggle and laugh, and be a hoot.
Yeah, I think so. And then, if they do then go, oh, what's all this about? You say, well, it's very real, reason why I'm doing this. Here it is. And
because actually other members of your silos are your customers.
Yep.
They are, and you are their customer. So
that's exactly, in a nutshell, that is exactly it, isn't it? So, well, there you go. We've solved that.
Solved that then. That's
done.
Easier than I was expecting.
Yeah, write it off, isn't it? So, no, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed that chapter.
Yep, so did I. And actually, honestly, if anybody has any specific questions they want to ask, Sam and I will do our best to kind of, from our vast experience of 50 years of marketing, will help you actually say, look, this happened to me. We did this, and this was the kind of solution. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I think that's it. I think really understanding the real examples of where there may be things we've said which we've suggested which then you go, oh, that just wouldn't work because of X, Y, and Z. Or do you know what, I did something like that or did something completely different and it was pretty well.
And we absolutely understand that some of this can be quite sensitive, and you might want to keep this anonymous. And we will, of course, absolutely not mention you, your name, your business, anything.
Exactly. So yes, we're very discreet, aren't we?
We are frightfully discreet, but we're British, for goodness sake. We get discreetness in our genes.
That's exactly it. And I think, just sharing that, because I think we're sort of starting to build a bit of a community around the podcast, and this kind of mutual help. I think is what's hopefully what people find is very valuable, and the more we can do that, the more people come forward, and as you say, totally anonymously, then the better we can really enhance and build on our shared experiences and make things better for everybody involved, hopefully. That's the goal, definitely. So brilliant. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Just to let everyone know, by the way, if you didn't know already, if you are trying to get in touch with us, then you can do it on Twitter, which is @MeandersPod. Search us up, Marketing Meanders, on Facebook, or you can email, which is meanderspod@gmail.com. I found out yesterday, if you just do a Google search for Marketing Meanders, I don't think anyone else out there has that name. So you find all our past episodes, videos, trailers, and sites, and all this sort of business, So we are everywhere. You'll find us.
Yes, we are omnipresent.
Indeed, we are ubiquitous. Oh, I love that word. Sorry,
you can spell it though.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much. Really enjoyed that.
Okay, bye.
Bye for now, everybody.